Hey guys, so today we're going to do the purple halo eye and we're going to use the Huda Beauty Amethyst Obsessions palette. So we're starting with our primer. I'm using the NYX Studio Perfect Photo Loving Primer and I'm using an EcoTools flat synthetic brush to apply it. I'm applying it mostly on my problem areas where my pores tend to show up the most, which is usually, it tends to be our T-zone. Next, I'm moving on to foundation. I'm using the L'Oreal Infallible Pro Matte Foundation. And my shade is 102, which is shell beige. I'm applying it all over my face with a Kabuki EcoTools brush. And I'm going for extra coverage today because I have a little bit of a breakout on my nose, as you can see. So I'm doing a little bit of extra coverage around that area. Making sure that I blend it nicely all over my face, down my neck, and I'm tapping it in also to make it sink into my skin. Moving on to concealer, I'm using my Cover FX drops. This is a custom cover drops. And this just gives me a little bit more of coverage and brightness around the high points of my face. The trick is to let it sit for a few minutes before you blend it so you can get the most payoff on the pigment. And now blending it with my beauty blender, making sure that it's nice and seamless. Always make sure that you look up when you're doing it to avoid any type of creasing. Now immediately we're going to set it with a setting powder, a loose setting powder to be specific, and I'm baking my under eye especially. I'm using my Pretty Vulgar setting powder and I'm picking it up with the beauty blender and making sure that I put it underneath the eye, around my chin, around my nose, and a little bit on my forehead, because those are the areas that tend to crease in the most for me. Moving on to bronzer and contouring, I'm using my Physicians Formula bronzer in the shade Deep. And with a nice fluffy brush, I am contouring my cheeks, which means I'm going almost on top, but not quite of the cheekbone, like right underneath, but almost on top. Because I like that snatched look. And I'm starting towards the back of my face, almost towards the hairline, and dragging it down. And just going back and forth with that motion and doing little circular motions as well. Bringing it up to the forehead, making sure you're blending it nicely onto the hairline. And just making sure that you're blending it very well. I use that same brush to dust off the powder on those sides of my face, which is my nose and my mouth. But I'm keeping the under eye powder. Moving on to eyebrows, I am using my L'Oreal Brow Stylist Definer in dark brunette, and I'm just shaping the eyebrow and kind of filling it in where my hairs are not doing enough for me, and just making sure that I get a little bit more deep color into it. I'm using the other side of the brush also, as you're gonna see, the spoolie, to kind of blend it out even nicer, and making sure that there's no rough edges, especially in the front part of the eyebrow, because you want to make it look more natural. I'm also carving on my eyebrows with a nice, precise and flat synthetic brush and concealer, just to make sure that those lines are nice and defined. This is not a must. You can skip it if you want to. I'm using the little bit of extra concealer that I had on my sponge on my eyes as a primer, and we're gonna start on this eye look for today. So I'm using the pinky shade on this palette. This is the Huda Beauty Amethyst Obsessions palette as my transition shade. I apologize, this palette does not have the shade names on it, but I am going to try my best to show them to you throughout the video. So I'm using this as my transition shade, just going a little bit back and forth and kind of focusing it on the crease and taking a little bit up on almost on the bone, but not quite. Next, I'm going to go into the deep purple, and I'm tapping it in because I really want it to be very, very deep on the outer corner, making sure that I don't take it too high or too towards the middle. I do want to avoid the middle area of my eye because we're going to use a different color over there. And I'm also going to do the inner corner as well. just tapping the product and making sure that I also do a little bit of back and forth motion, very tiny, to buff out those edges and make it look more blended. The good thing about the setting powder is not just that it's baking the base product in, meaning the concealer and the foundation, into your skin, but it's also acting as a barrier to protect your eyes, your under eyes, from any fallout of the eyeshadow. Then just going back with the brush, kind of blending it in towards the top to make sure that everything is married together and it looks nice and blended. Now we're gonna cut the crease this time, the center of the crease more specifically. I'm using that same synthetic brush, very flat, very precise, and I'm using a little bit more of concealer to kind of define the lines and define the area where I'm going to be using that other color. What this does is it gives you really nice definition, especially where you want it to start and where you want it to finish. And also it acts as a really nice base because it stays kind of tacky and sticky. So if you're going to use, in this case we're using a glitter eyeshadow, it's going to act very nicely as a sticky base for the glitter to stay on. I'm also going on with that same brush, blending out that concealer, blending the edges to make sure that it looks nice and defined. And now we're going on with that glitter dual chromey pinky purpley eyeshadow and just tapping the product in, making sure we get the most payoff out of it. There's 3 ways to do this. You can just pick it up on a brush. You can spritz the brush with setting spray, as you can see. That usually works out very well, especially for metallics. Or you can also use your finger. I'm doing all 3 so you can see how I'm working with all 3. And it really depends on what kind of eyeshadow you're using. Again, going back with that same brush to buff the edges, make sure it looks nice and blended. Now we're going to move on to the lower lash line. I'm picking up that purple shade with a pencil brush and I am just buffing it out all over my lower lash line, staying very close to my eyelashes. Making sure you connect it to the outside of the top part, making sure that everything is being married together. And then we're also going to grab that pink shade that we grabbed in the beginning as a transition shade and just put it a little bit under that purple on the lower lash line to marry everything together, making sure that it's seamless transition. And I'm also going to grab that glitter and put it towards the middle of the bottom as well, kind of mirroring what I did in the top. As the inner corner highlight, I'm going into my Wonderess, Dusted Dawn palette, and I'm using City Lights to brighten that inner corner. I'm going with my Maybelline black pencil eyeliner, and I'm using it to line my waterline in the bottom. Now we're dusting off the powder on the under eye with that brush, not picking up any extra product, just dusting it off. And now doing eyeliner, I'm going with a liquid felt tip eyeliner from NYX. This is the Epic Ink liner in the shade Black. And I'm not going to wing it out. I'm just going to go right on top of the shape of my eye. Just give it a little bit of a small line to give it a little bit more of a definition and deepness to my eyes. Moving on to mascara, I'm using my Superhero It Cosmetics mascara in the shade Super Black. And I'm just applying a couple coats on the top and the bottom eyelashes. This is a great mascara. It almost makes you feel like I don't really have to curl my lashes. Now for blush, I went back to that Wondrous Dusted Dawn by Huda Beauty palette, and I'm using the shade Havana Nights as blush, and I'm applying it on the apples of my cheeks. And just marrying everything together. For highlight, I'm using that same palette, but I'm using the shade City Lights. This is a nice golden highlight. It's very blinding, as you can see. It's so pretty. And just applying it on the top of my cheeks. Bringing it towards the back and on the brow bone as well. Picking up a little bit more product, I'm going on the bridge of my nose, on my forehead and temples, and on my cupid's bow. Yes, so pretty. Moving on to lips, I'm going on with my lip pencil by Bodyography in the shade Heatherberry. This is a really nice pinky nude, and I'm just lining my lips with that. And now we're going to use a liquid lipstick from MDM Flow, and this is in the shade New Nude. This is a pretty basic nude. The formula is pretty good. It's a matte lipstick. So I'm just applying that all over my lips. My recommendation is when you do a bold eye like this, when you do colorful eye makeup or very strong eye makeup, you kind of want to keep it nude on the lips just to make sure that you get a nice balance on your face. That's my personal preference. You can do whatever you want. There's no rules on makeup, obviously. As you can notice, I am also using that highlighter to put it on my lips as well. I just pick up a little bit on my finger and tap it before the lipstick fully dries. I tap it on the center of the lips. And last but not least, obviously, I am setting my face with the NYX Matte Finish Setting Spray. This is a must. And I hope you guys liked the look for today. I surely did. Purple is one of my favorite colors. Let me know what you think. Let me know what kind of videos you want to see. And I'll see you guys on my next video. Don't forget to subscribe, click the button down below, and follow me on Instagram. See you on the next one.